Welcome everyone to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host Sean Gann, alongside my partner Jack Nicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. Another chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at JustSayingNoGWJS for article and video updates. Don't forget to check us out on Spotify and get us in your ears at Just Saying Football, as well as get in our Discord. Check out the bets that we got going on at Just Saying Football as well. Buddy, Thanksgiving week. Week 13, short week for everybody. Week of food and football. How you feeling about it this week?
Yeah, we got 3 Thanksgiving games, a Friday game, bunch of Sunday slates, Monday game. We got a whole weekend worth of good games, and yeah, it's going to be a great time. We got a bunch of stuff going on outside of that as well, so get us right into it, Seanzy. We got a lot of news and notes today.
Very much. First off, happy Thanksgiving to everybody listening, watching, eat lots of food, and enjoy the football. Gardner Minshew broke his collarbone. He's out for the year. Aidan O'Connell should be getting the start. He's also been dealing with a thumb injury still, so that's something to monitor. Roquan Smith missed the Monday Night Football game with a hamstring injury. Something to watch this week as the Ravens take on the Eagles. Matt Milano, who's missed the entire season due to injury, could be back this week. Dalton Kincaid is also training to play this week as well. Cooper Rush was limited with a knee injury. Zach Martin hasn't practiced this week. And Jake Ferguson is still not practicing with the concussion, and he's in the concussion protocol. But Shoemaker has been stepping up very well in his place. Just want to shout him out right now. Romeo Dobbs is not practicing as he's in the concussion protocol as well. Jay Alexander is dealing with a knee injury and has not practiced. Pacheco could play this week, which is huge for the Chiefs. Ivan Pace Jr. is out with a hamstring injury and is placed on IR for the Vikings. Cam Robinson left the game with a foot injury but could play this week at left tackle for them. Tommy DeVito is dealing with a forearm injury. Brian Dable says he is not 100% to play on Thursday against the Cowboys. That's big news for your Giants. Darius Slay is in the concussion protocol. Devontae Smith is dealing with a hamstring injury. And Brandon Graham, the longtime Eagle, has torn his pec and is out for the year. Which is a brutal loss for a guy who's just been a stout defensive player for that team and organization for a long time. Shout out to him. Hopefully he gets a good recovery, potentially a second ring. Whoever knows. Brock Purdy is back for the 49ers. Bosa is dealing with a hip injury. Trent Williams is dealing with an ankle injury. And Lenore is in concussion protocol. That is something to monitor. L'Jarius Sneed, the top cornerback paid in the NFL, is on IR right now. Austin Eckler is in the concussion protocol. And Marshawn Lattimore is still dealing with a hamstring injury and has yet to play for Washington. And now for the weather report and our first of the year. It's a snow blizzard in Buffalo this weekend. So that's going to be exciting. Stay tuned for that. Let's get into it. Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, Chicago Bears at Detroit to take on the Lions. Lions are favoring this one by -10 with an over-under here of 48.5. It's at 12:30 Eastern, my man. How are you feeling going into this one? The Lions coming off of another huge win. Bears coming off of another brutal loss.
Yeah, it seems like the Bears, after starting hot this season, have not had anything going the last couple weeks. Some devastating losses. Hail Mary, the kick last week from the Vikings. But then you got to go play the divisional opponent in Detroit on Thanksgiving. And before Detroit was, as they are right now, 10-1, favored by 10 against a division opponent, this was their Super Bowl. So you know this is going to be prime time for the Lions, ready to go. I know Amon-Ra is a little banged up, may not play. He's expected to, though. Montgomery, they may give him a week off this week. He could be a go. So monitor those guys as we go into Thursday. But I'm taking the Lions by 10 here. They're playing too good with all the other guys out. I'm expecting guys like Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Khalif Raymond to step up and get this one at home.
Yeah, I'm can't pick against the Lions right now. They're just playing too well, and I keep mentioning their schedule. It's not too bad. They play the Packers next, then the Bills, the Bears again, the 49ers, and then the Vikings. Those are all very winnable games for them. There's a chance that they only walk away with only a loss or two on the season. Shout out to Caleb Williams. He had a great game and arguably his best game of the season against the Vikings, who have a great defense. They played well, just not well enough. I just can't see them winning this one on the road. Moving this along, your New York Giants making their way to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Dallas is favored in this one by -3.5. Over-under here of 37.5. This game's at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. What are your thoughts going into this one? Again, Tommy DeVito, forearm injury. We might see Drew Lock.
Yeah, and I was asking why didn't we start Drew Lock, who has a little more experience in the NFL level than Tommy DeVito. I know last week I was saying it's more of a fan grab, but Tommy DeVito was just not moving last week, and there's got to be something, like Malik Neighbors said, dealing with the coaching. I think that, it's just time for them to scheme up what they need to here, get Tyrone Tracy the ball, get Neighbors the ball, and Dallas, they are a beatable team, favored by 3.5. I'd watch the Giants live on this one, but I'll take them straight up against the Cowboys. I'll even take the plus 3.5 if you need to. But yeah, I think the Giants can get the win, but I also still expect a big game from Schumacher, CeeDee Lamb. They still have some good pieces in Dallas.
Yeah, I will also take the Giants. I like what I don't really like anything in this game. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah.
But I think the Giants they're due for a win at some point. We've seen some bright spots with Neighbors and Tracy. I expect them to get involved in this. I do think Drew Lock gives them a better chance to win the game than Tommy DeVito. There was a lot of excitement with DeVito last year. It seems like that has sort of gone away. We're still seeing some offensive line woes. But I think you get Malik Neighbors involved early. You get this offense going. The defense is pretty good. They got some playmakers. They got Brian Burns. They got Dexter Lawrence. Get this front seven involved in the game earlier. Get after Cooper Rush, who's dealing with a knee injury. Might be Trey Lance in that, which would be huge for the Giants as well. I like them in this game. New York is due for a win, and I think it's this week. I don't know if it will be enough to save Daboll's job, but we'll see as the season continues. Moving this along, last game of Thanksgiving night, 7:20 p.m. Miami Dolphins making their way to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Packers are favored this one -3.5 with an over-under here of 47.5. Josh Jacobs with the hat trick touchdowns last week. How are you feeling, buddy? Dolphins look much better with Tua.
Yeah, they are, and right now they gotta try to win this game, and they are behind in the division of Buffalo. So if they want to get anywhere, they're gonna have to go to 500 and win this game. That being said, we've been talking about it all year, how hard it is to play in Lambeau, how well the Packers have been playing. If you're not riding the Jordan Love interception every week, you should be. He hasn't had a game without one. And Miami, they're not great at forcing turnovers, so I would love to see the Packers just get open early the way that they did against the Niners. I think they could win, cover the 3.5. I think this could be a big week for Jaden Reed. I have the over 51.5 in the Discord. Didn't hit, that offense just didn't need to pass last week, and I think they try to keep the ball out of Tua's hands next week.
I think that's all you can try to do is get after him as best as possible, make him a little bit uncomfortable in the pocket. But honestly, I really like the Packers in this one. It's going to be Thursday. It's going to be cold. It's going to be a little snowy there in Lambeau Field. There's all this talk about how Tua plays in the outdoors, especially in the cold, because he's always been in the warm climate areas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I do think this will be a little bit better of a game than people are expecting. I expect this Dolphins offense to get going a little bit more than people are anticipating. But at the end of the day, the Packers, they're getting turnovers defensively. They're number one in the league with that. I think that they're a dark horse team that if they start to get hot in the playoffs, oh my God, they can easily make it to the NFC Championship game. Yeah. I'm a little bit worried about that as a Vikings fan. They're in my division. We're only a one game up on them. I think that they're one of the few teams that can maybe beat the Lions. You and I were talking about this off screen, and you mentioned it best. When you play teams 3 times potentially, twice in the division and once in the playoffs, that's where something kind of happens. Love is a good quarterback. He's turned the ball over a lot every single game. Lock that in this game. Probably going to get a turnover as well. Jalen Ramsey's there for the Dolphins. But I do like them in this one. I think they're going to get going again. Dark horse team. Let's keep this going. Black Friday. It's happening. Las Vegas Raiders making their way to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Chiefs are favoring this one by -12 with an over-under here of 42.5. This game is at 3 o'clock. Keep that in mind, everybody, on Friday and for your fantasy lineups as well. What are your thoughts going into this one?
Dude, Kansas City on a Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon after Thanksgiving, no less. It's going to be mayhem in Arrowhead. I think that Aiden O'Connell, he presents a lot less fantasy relevance for all the guys on the Raiders. I think everyone kind of takes a little bit of a hit as, Gardner Minshew is kind of slinging it even though it wasn't pretty. I think that this could be a great game for Kareem Hunt. Sean mentioned that Pacheco may come back this week, but I think that they kind of give Kareem Hunt one big goodbye to his over 50% running back share. I could see Kareem Hunt going for 2 touchdowns this week. A little Friday night hot take, but everybody's going to be involved. We saw DeAndre Hopkins getting a big catch last week. Kansas City, we just can't see them trap themselves like they did against Carolina last week.
Yeah, Carolina's been playing a little bit better. Bryce Young actually looks like he might be able to move this offense along if they get some playmakers. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But I'm like in Kansas City, this defense is their lifeblood. I agree with you. This is like the last week that Kareem Hunt really has the big usage, especially if Pacheco's back in it. I like him for 2 touchdowns as well. I think that's like pretty comfortable. I just can't imagine that they're going to lose this game. I think Brock Bowers might have a good game, but if there's anything the Kansas City defense should know, it's how to go up against a good tight end, considering that they practice up against one of the best in the league and Travis Kelce every single week and during the offseason. I'm locking them. I can't see them losing the game like this at Arrowhead. Let's keep us moving along. Sunday now. Los Angeles Chargers making their way to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Chargers are favoring this by -1.5. Over under here of 47.5. Two kind of good offenses. We saw a tough loss by the Chargers on Monday Night Football, which included 3 drop passes from Quentin Johnson on 5 targets. What are your thoughts, my man?
Yeah, man. I was all over the Herbert passing yards this week. I thought that was probably the safest bet, and it looked great in the first half. He had 80 yards, and then all of a sudden he had 170. And then it's like he has less than 50 in the second half, and he was shut down. We haven't really seen too much of that. I think Atlanta's secondary kind of provides, this defense, they don't have a lot of pass rush. So I think that this could be a big week for them to get right for the Chargers. Definitely a disappointing loss, but they're on the road traveling pretty far this week, and they're favored. So it wouldn't shock me if Atlanta could get the win, but I think the Chargers, if they can run Gus Edwards the way they've been doing Dobbins, they can definitely win this game.
Yeah, I think the run game is so crucial. We saw once he got injured, this entire dynamic of the offense changed. They couldn't get the run game going, which greatly affected their pass game. And I feel like I mentioned this with the Cardinals, and I'll stand by it with the Cardinals, but I'll also say the same with the Chargers. It feels like the Chargers are a good wide receiver away from being a solid offense consistently week in, week out. What I mean by solid offense, not that they're not solid now, but I mean a more high-scoring offense, a little bit more big play opportunity week in and week out. They just seem to be very good at sustaining drives, which is, of course, a crucial part of the NFL. We saw them move the ball down the field really well to get 3 points on Monday Night Football right before the second half. But just seems like they're that kind of guy away from being something good, like a Malik Neighbors-esque kind of guy in his rookie season and just like get you going. Yeah. I like them in this one. There's something about the Falcons that I'm a little bit worried about with how they're going to play. This is kind of the Kirk Cousins effect, and why I fear him is because he has some games where he's thrown for 330, 4 touchdowns, walk in your trap, take over your trap in 1 week, and then the next week you can't even muster 10 points offensively. He's throwing interceptions left and right, and it's tough to see. Yeah. So I'm a little bit worried about this team, and I think that the Chargers' defense is very good, and I don't think that you can sleep on their offense. So I'll take them for this one on the road. Let's keep this moving along. So we have an AFC North showdown. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers making their way to to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Bengals favored this by -2.5. Over under here at 47. How you feeling? Bengals are coming off of the bye. Steelers tough road loss in the snow against Cleveland.
Definitely a tough road loss. Not one me or you expected. We were both loving the 3.5 by the Steelers, but this, I'm kind of loving them for a different reason here. Mike Tomlin, as an underdog, has been great this season. They're definitely looking to bounce back from that loss against Jameis last week. Never really had Jaylen Warren pegged to lead the team in rushing last week. You can kind of see that the game plan changed right away. I think the run game will be crucial here in this game as well for the Steelers with Najee Harris and Jalen, because now they're getting to that point where they got to use both. We're late in the season. They're going to be ahead in these games. They got to plan like it. I do expect a big Jamar Chase game, but I also expect a really big T. Higgins game on the other side. I feel like we have been waiting for a big breakout, and Joey Porter will be on Jamar Chase. So give me Pittsburgh as dogs on the road. Bengals will drop to 4-8, which I would have told you were crazy if you told me that before the season.
I hear it week in and week out in every single sports show, and they're absolutely right. If you flipped the win-loss ratio for Joe Burrow, he's an MVP candidate right now, right? Or even, honestly, if they were sitting here at an even record, at like 6-6 or something like that. Obviously, 4-7 is an odd number, so at the moment they can't. But you get what I'm saying. Yeah, no, if he was at least 500, it just feels like he's there in the MVP conversation. This offense is so good. We see what they're able to do week in and week out, but there's just something on the defensive side where it's just not clicking for them. There are these moments
it's not there.
It's just not there, and like it was brutal because I'm watching the Ravens game. The Ravens put together this beautiful drive. They take a touchdown lead all of a sudden, their first lead of the game. And what is the very first thing the Bengals do the next play? They toss a deep one to Jamar Chase for a touchdown. Like that, they've tied up the game, and it just feels like they're so good, but they're so bad at the same time because of their defense.
Too statistically terrible to make the playoffs, but outside of that, they are so good.
So I'm going to take the Steelers. You can't drop 2 games to the division. I mentioned this last week. All their divisional games are in the back end right now. Right? They got to play these games. They got to play Cleveland again. They got to play the Bengals again. And I believe they have to play the Ravens one more time as well. So they got all these games all over again. You got to win these games. You only have a 1-game lead and the tiebreaker over Baltimore right now. These are the crucial games. You and I talk about it at any time during the season. Win games against your divisions are like the toughest and the most crucial games that you need. This is the time for the Steelers. I think if they drop this game, you start to question how real that they are and legit they are to go deep in the playoffs. So I think that's kind of what's at stake at this moment. You drop 2 in a row on the road to your division, all of a sudden we're questioning whether or not you're one of the better teams in the playoffs right now. So then there's a lot at stake for them. Moving this right along, Houston Texans make their way to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Houston's favored this one -5.5, over under here of 43. I'm locking in the Texans, man. I think this is a get-right game for them. I can't say enough about that. This is a little bit of a sophomore slump with C.J. Stroud, but I'm not worried about the rest of his career. This happens with quarterbacks all the time and players all the time. I'm locking in the Texans.
Yeah, I'm going to take Joe Mixon over on everything in this game because going 14 for 22, that's 1.6 per carry last week. Not what you want to see from the guy who's in the top 5 rushing category. So I will take the Texans 5.5 safely against Jacksonville. We were just talking about big division games. This is an easy one for Texans. They got to use the control of division.
Yep, I couldn't agree with you more. All right, let's keep this moving along. So the Arizona Cardinals make it their way to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Vikings are favored by -3.5. Over under here of 45. I'm going to let you go with first. I always have a tendency to rant.
So Vikings at home, 9-2 right now. The Cardinals are at 6-5. We're at a pretty crucial week for them right now. James Conner did not get going last week. You can see how that affected the entire outlay of the offense. On the other side, you had the Vikings. They have everybody going off. You had Jordan Addison getting 30 fantasy points. You have, T.J. Hawkinson hitting his lines every week now, and you also have Justin Jefferson taking that hit for it. But on the other hand, you got Kyler Murray, and he shows up every week. Some days he is a guy who has nothing. You have no idea what's going on with his offense. Some days he looks like a top 5 player in the NFL. So I think this is one of those weeks where he could struggle. The Vikings defense has been playing better than a lot of people have given them credit for. So I will. I'll take the Vikings here 3.5, and I would take the over at 45.
I do think that I like the over for sure. I want to agree with that first and foremost. I do think this is a big game for like James Conner. If they're not able to get the ball going on the run game, I think it's gonna be a lot harder for them. We've seen a lot from Kyler, but they're asking him to do a lot.
Yeah.
And he can't. I think he's playing a great season, but I don't think that he can do it all. I just think again they're kind of missing that extra playmaker. I'd love to see a Trey McBride touchdown. He hasn't found the end zone at all this season, which has been brutal because he's having such a great season.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Sean, 19 fantasy points last week. He could have had a
touchdown. Like imagine. Could be this week. Just saying. Ivan Pace Jr. with a hamstring injury. Could be the chance again. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe throw it down on your bets. But I'm liking the Vikings in this one. A few things I want to point out. Sam Darnold, 11 of 13 for 166 yards in the fourth quarter and in overtime combined. That's one of those stats you love to see. I do think also that the Vikings are more dangerous when JJ isn't the guy that he's always looking to. He mentioned it, and you and I were talking about it. When he doesn't feast, everybody else gets to feast, and that's great because there are so many playmakers. Like, you got Jordan Addison, who's a first-round pick. You have T.J. Hawkins, who's a first-round pick. These guys are absolutely electric.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connell could build this up. This is only good news, I think, for Sam Darnold in this offense because we saw what happens when they try to force the ball to J.J. 3 turnovers against the Jaguars in a game that we barely won. You do that against the Lions, you're going to lose by a lot of points. You do that against the Eagles, you're going to lose by a lot of points. So figure it out now. If you can't always go to JJ, who else can you go to? Because you have 2 other guys that can get you over 100 yards, as you just mentioned. Yeah. So I'm locking in the Vikings with this one. I also hopefully our defense plays a little bit better. That fourth quarter was a heart attack. Didn't love that. So was that overtime. But let's keep this moving along. Indianapolis Colts making their way to New England to take on the Patriots. Colts are favored this by -2.5. Over under here of 42.5. How are you feeling about this one? Just is giving me memories and flashbacks to the playoff game of Deflategate for some reason at this moment. But how are you feeling for this one?
Yeah, love a good. It's crazy when you think about. Imagine how accurate Andrew Luck used to be in those days of the Deflategate not too long ago, and then you got a guy like Anthony Richardson now throwing 38% completion and getting the start again this week. So good for him, I guess. But the fact is, this is probably the game. This is Jack's. Keep your money away from this. This is a horrible game. So I'll give Drake May some credit. The last 5 games, he has 5 pass touchdowns, but he also has 5 interceptions. This is definitely a way Indianapolis is going to be able to create a lot of turnovers. They have to get Jonathan Taylor going, so I'm expecting a big Jonathan Taylor game, and I'll take the Colts at 2.5.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor was just not used, not involved last week. It was tough to see. Speaking of bad percentage, he had 38% last week, 47% pass completion on the season for Anthony Richardson. These are not things that you want. I'm going to take the Patriots in this one. I think Drake May has shown flashes. Let's see what they do in the offseason and the draft to get some playmakers in there, see how they can build this offensive line and build around him. But the thing that I think that the Patriots do a pretty good job of doing, a lot of do's in that, is they have a good defensive unit. So I think this is a game where you can get after Anthony Richardson, make him uncomfortable, force some turnovers. You'll have the home crowd behind you. It'll be outdoor, cold weather. It's Foxborough. I think there's a chance for them to win it at home. I'll take the Patriots in this one. Moving it right along, Seattle Seahawks making them in New York to take on the Jets. Seattle starting this by -2 with an over-under here of 41.5. The Jets are coming off of the bye. Seattle got the big win against the Cardinals to now take hold of the NFC West. What are your thoughts going into this one, my man?
Yeah, Seattle's gotta take advantage of this game right now. The Jets have not played well at home. They are really struggling, even though they're coming off the bye. Maybe this could be a surprise. I would maybe live bet the Jets or something like that. But Seattle is looking pretty good right now. Jackson Smith-Njigba with another big week. DK Metcalf another big week. I'd like to see Kenneth Walker get going. I know this is kind of a tough matchup for running backs, but I'll take Seattle, no problem at all.
Yeah, we talked about this a lot last week off camera, and I think a little bit on. But the reports of the Jets defense just giving up, and the team wanting it can't wait for the offseason, all these different things. These are not the reports that you want to hear. This is the game for the Seahawks, I think, to just go off, have some fun. Let's get Kenneth Walker involved. Let's beat up on a team that's very beat up a bull. Let's see what you're able to do. Jackson Smith-Njigba, you and I were so high on him last year coming out of the draft. That was a tough rookie season to see. And so far in the second season, he has just been one of the unsung, untalked about, really great players this season. 8th in receiving yards, 7th in receptions. These are the things that you want to see from your year 2 guy. And he's been taking over when he needs to, when DK's been injured. I like Seattle for this one. I think they get to 7-5, and they slowly start to maybe pull away in the NFC West, which is really, really close still. The 49ers aren't really out of it, and the Rams aren't really out of it. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. Moving this right along, Tennessee Titans make their way to Washington to take on the Commanders. Washington's favoring this one by -6 with an over-under here of 46.5. The Commanders were 7-2 at one point, and they have dropped 3 straight games. They have to get a win to stay alive in this NFC playoff race. Can they do it against the Titans, Jack?
Yeah, they can. I mean, they have got to be doing it, the right way here. I think it's just one of those things where you look at Austin Eckler getting hurt, you hope Brian Robinson comes back, but man, you got Jaden Daniels back there right now doing his thing, and I know they lost, and that's obviously on the kicker, but that was one of the craziest endings to a game we've had in a long time. The defensive touchdowns, the Turpin touchdown, it's just unbelievable. That they were able to lose that one. You never really know when a game gets like that how it's going to turn out. But I'll take them no problem here. The Titans are a booty.
Yeah, the Titans are not my favorite team. I've been kind of never on the Will Levis train of excitement. I think in my first draft, my mock draft last year, never even had him in the first round despite everybody else. I never got it. The Mayo Man is not for me. And he's kind of proven that this year. We've seen some nice deep balls from him. I'll give him that. I think this is a huge get-right game for the Commanders. If you're looking at the NFC playoff picture right now, they're currently in as a 7th seed, but they have the Cardinals right there on their heels at a 6-5 record. If the Cardinals are able to pull off a road win, get to 7-5, and the Commanders drop on their 7-6, all of a sudden that totally flips. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. These games are so crucial right now. I think this is like a have-to-win game for the Commanders. Your team is that kind of good. Last week was a divisional game. Those games are always weird. Those games are always tough. It was a great game, by the way. Kicker should have made it. I mean, also the special team should have stopped that touchdown. I don't know what was going on. That was Madden. That was a Madden spin move into some clear space, and you're like, that's BS. That makes you restart the game. Yeah. So there's a lot that went wrong in that game for Washington. Before, man. Dude, it happens. You know, back in the OG day, you used to run straight, and then right at the right moment, you either cut left or cut right, and there was always this weird little opening. But the spin move was ridiculous. There's a lot that the Washington needs to fix this week. Let's see if Terry can get more involved, because if you take away that big reception and touchdown that he had, that's 2 receptions for like 15 yards. Yeah. So he has to be a part of this offense, but I do like them for this one. Moving this right along, Tampa Bay Buccaneers making their way to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Buccaneers are favored this by -6, so over under here of 46.5. Carolina played a great game last week. They might have gotten the loss, but a 30-27 loss to a 10-1 Chiefs team, the defending back-to-back Super Bowl champions. That was not the game I think anybody was expecting for them. And the odds were like -10 in the Chiefs' favored, so the Panthers smashed that spread. Yeah. How are you feeling in this game? You think they can upset the Buccaneers in a divisional game?
I don't know. These NFC South games, they're always so chaotic. I think that they definitely showed some flashes last week in Carolina that we've been waiting to see. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers also showed that Mike Evans is back. K-Don not very heavily involved last week, but not a lot of passing game when you got 3 good running backs and you're up by 30 in the first half. So I think Tampa Bay, they're 5-6. They gotta get this going. They gotta get back to 500 right now after that slump with Mike Evans and Godwin out. Now they have Mike back. He always does well against the Panthers, and Baker's 3-0 against them. So I'll take Tampa Bay.
Yeah, we talk about crucial games in the division, and I'm going to sound like a broken record. But even if the Falcons lose and the Buccaneers win, they're 6-6. The Falcons have a tiebreaker. You know why? Because the Falcons are 4-1 in their division. Huge. This is why the divisional games become so crucial. They already beat up on the Bucs. They have a chance to beat up on everybody else. The Buccaneers are 1-2. Not only do they need to win games just to beat the division, they have to win in their own division just for the hopes. Because right now, if they end with a tie record against the Falcons, it doesn't matter. The head-to-head losses right now, they'll lose. I think they're going to take the win. I agree with you. Baker has played great against his former team. I think that he's going to get the win here. I do like what we're seeing out of Carolina. Hopefully, they can build some momentum for the future, get rid of Gettleman, and, or not Gettleman, who's the owner?
David Tepper.
Get rid of Tepper. Build something for the future, because I do like what we're finally seeing from Bryce Young. All right, moving this right along. Los Angeles Rams making their way to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Rams favored this one -3 with an over-under here of 49.5. Brutal loss for the Rams because of Saquon Barkley. How are you feeling in this one? You think they can stop Alvin Kamara? Is he going to have like a Christmas Eve-esque game of 6 touchdowns like he did against the Vikings?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be 6, but he could definitely get 2 against this team. We can see a lot of holes in the Rams. Obviously, last week giving up so many yards to Saquon on the ground. Definitely going to be another threat here for Alvin Kamara. I think the Rams do get this one done. I just don't trust the Saints offense as much as I trust the Rams offense. No matter whether they're winning or losing, Cooper Kupp and Puka are just getting as many catches as possible. Not as a lot of yards or touchdowns, but it's all about them getting as many targets as possible. I think that this is the week for that, and the Saints are coming off the bye, so I expect them to be healthier. So this is going to be a better game than we would have thought.
I do think this will be a better game than we think, but I really do like the Rams offense. I think that last week was a tough one for them. The explosive plays by Barkley, getting 14 points essentially in 2 plays because he just rips one off for 70 yards. It's going to set anybody back. It's going to be hard to come back from that. All of a sudden, it changes how you run your offense. You're pass first only. You're not getting Kyren Williams, who's a great running back, involved as much as you want to. Can't rely on that run game. You're forcing a lot on your defense because you have to go quickly. So 3-and-outs become a higher percentage. but I do really like this offense. I think they're going to be too much for the Saints defense that's been really inconsistent. We've seen some great games, some bad games. We've seen some great quarters, and we've seen some terrible quarters. So for me, I'll stay away from the Saints. I'll take the Rams in this one. I like Sean McVay.
Yep.
Moving this along, one of our better games of the week, potential Super Bowl matchup, kind of, depending on how you look, just for fun. Philadelphia Eagles making their way to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Baltimore's favored this by -3.5 with an over-under here of 51. Who do you think is going to run for more in this one? Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, Saquon's got to be tired after breaking Shady McCoy's franchise record last week. Definitely as a Giants fan watching that, hating it, but you gotta respect him, man. He's running as hard as anybody can. Derrick Henry as well. He got a lot last week, so it's just time to watch two of the best, probably two of the guys that are most likely to lead the league in rushing this year against each other. So this game's all going to be about controlling the clock. I'm taking the over 51.5. I'm taking a Jalen Hurts touchdown in this no matter what. I think this is a huge game for A.J. Brown. If Devonta Smith comes back, same thing. The Eagles, they have not had to pass too much in the second halves, but they really do take advantage of it in the first half. Get it to A.J. Brown, get it to Devonta against this Ravens defense. And I love what the Ravens are doing, but I can't really figure out who their top target is right now. And I know the Eagles, they're kind of unstoppable right now.
The Eagles look great. I think it's going to be a very, very tough game. I think this is where you hope that the Baltimore crowd is really going to show out more than anything and support their team in a way that we haven't seen in quite some time, because this will feel, I think, like a playoff matchup despite being in two different divisions. This is going to be a tough game, I think, for both teams. There's a huge potential that A.J. Brown goes off in this game, that Dallas Goedert goes off in this game, because the Ravens are not a good passing defense. We've talked about this time and time again. And if they don't have Roquan Smith, we saw it last week on Monday Night Football, the announcers kept talking about it, and they're absolutely right. But Kyle Hamilton had to drop down a lot into that linebacker position defensively. That opens up huge holes for that secondary, and I genuinely think Devonta Smith comes back in this game, a healthy A.J. Brown, they could feast on that secondary, and all they'll ask from Barkley is to go for like 15 and 105 and 1 maybe, and that will be all that they need to win this game. That being said, I'm going to take the Ravens in this one, all right? I like everything that they're doing, but I do really think that they're a playoff team, and they're one of the better teams in the NFL. We saw them have a get-right game last week against the Chargers. The rule for them, run Derrick Henry, run Derrick Henry, run Derrick Henry, because the more you do that, the more will open up Lamar Jackson and everything else. And I think that when he gets on the outside and you see that he's really looking for a pass now, which is so much more than he's done the last few years, and I think it's why he's been so much more electric this year than in previous years during his MVP races as well, is that when he gets out on the outside and he's looking for that pass, there's like an oh shit moment, because he's finding the open guys now. He's no longer taking it himself. He's trusting his guys downfield. I love that. I love what they're able to do. I think it's going to throw a huge wrinkle for the Eagles defense. I like the Ravens going into this one. Moving this along, Sunday Night Football, San Francisco 49ers making their way to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Bills are favored this one -7, over-under here of 44.5. Snow game in Buffalo. How are you feeling? Do you think the 49ers can get back on track?
I don't know if it's going to be this week. This is going to be a long travel week for them. The Bills are playing pretty perfect. They're 9-2 for a reason. James Cook not rushing for a lot of yards, but he has 10 touchdowns on the season. They're coming off the bye right now, so no travel for them the last 2 weeks. I like the Buffalo Bills by 7. I do not know what to make of the Niners. After what we saw last week with no Brock Purdy, you can see that this team is no longer just a plug-and-play, any quarterback offense. Despite that, just Deebo Samuel, 2 drops last week, not a big game from Kittle. It's hard to picture a world where the 49ers are 5-7, but I think we're living in it, because this is kind of Josh Allen's season right now to gun for the MVP, and I think he's coming out 9-2, ready to do that. I'm expecting a big game from Khalil Shakir. Expecting a big game on the other side from George Kittle as well. I believe you said Milano's out, so this could be a huge matchup for him.
Yeah, Keon Coleman is also expected to be back in this one, which is big. I like the Bills. They're a cold weather team. We've been out there in the worst weather possible. We're talking rain, we're talking freezing, we're talking mud, and still every single one of those fans was out there cheering, supporting their team, drinking beers, going shirts off, going crazy for everything, whether it was a good play or a bad play. So I do expect that to happen. It's going to be cold. This 49ers team is not great in the cold. We see it. We've seen it over the last few years. It's at night in Buffalo. You know how many tables are about to be broken? How much alcohol is about to be consumed up there during Thanksgiving weekend? It's going to be a great one. I really like them in this one. I think that the 49ers, I don't think that their playoff window or their Super Bowl window is closing or expiring. I just think that... I think that this is what happens. Like, I think that they're just drained, man. Like, they've taken a lot of rough L's. Now you got the injury bug. Debo's down in all of his stat categories. Brandon Ayuk, he held out, wasn't playing his best, then gets injured. Ricky Pearsall, obviously, had his injury in the offseason, comes back late, has not been very involved in this offense. Juwan Jennings has been banged up. Christian McCaffrey's been banged up. Dre Greenlaw's out. Nick Bosa's out. I'm not making excuses. At the end of the day, everybody's in the NFL for a reason, but like, there's a reason why they're going to drop this week, and they're used to being fully healthy. We see what happens. They don't adjust well when they get injured, and we've seen other teams. Look at the Lions. They miss Aiden Hutchinson. Their defense is still playing pretty well. They're still 10-1. We've seen this happen with other teams. They got big injuries. Rashee Rice right now for Kansas City and Isaiah Pacheco, they're still 10-1. So... They got to make these adjustments. They got to get better at that. Let's go, Buffalo. All right, moving this right along. Monday Night Football. Cleveland Browns making their way to Denver to take on the Broncos. Denver's favored this by -5.5. Over under here of 42. Denver just dropped their new uniforms. Navy blue with the white helmet. They'll be debuting it on Monday Night Football. So that'll be fun to see some New Jersey out there. I'm going to lock them in. I like Denver a lot, man. The defense electric. Quarterback is playing well in Bo Nix. And although it was fun for Cleveland last week, I think it's going to be a little bit of reality check this week.
Yeah, definitely. Denver has been that reality check team, like you mentioned, what they did to Kirk Cousins 2 weeks ago. They were able to get cover this 5.5 that they have this week again against a bad team with the Raiders last week. It was a classic AFC West divisional showdown, but Denver at home playing great this season. Give me the 5.5. Give me Bo Nix passing yards with that as well. Cortland Sutton as well. You got to give a big shout out to him. 2 touchdowns last week. He's wide receiver 7 in fantasy on the year right now. Nobody was expecting that.
No, not me. I wasn't even expecting Bo Nix to have the season that he's having. I think I mentioned it last week. I think he might be running off with that Offensive Rookie of the Year trophy. And again, Jaden Daniels has a rib injury. I think he's still a great player. I think he's going to be a great player, but injuries happen. It's
losing games to the Cowboys.
Yeah, losing game to the Cowboys. That's brutal. But that's all the time that we have. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the long weekend, and rest up, eat food, watch football, sit back, relax.
Yeah, enjoy. Thank you guys for watching. Week 13 already here. We'll be back in Week 14 to give you all of our picks, info. And thank you guys for always checking us out on YouTube at Just Saying Football, at Spotify, Just Saying Football. And make sure to check us out on Instagram, Just Saying NoGWJS, for all of our game updates, everything like that. And our Discord picks at Just Saying Football in there. Thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the weekend.
Enjoy.